Alabama has 2 losses and won a game last week over Mercer and jumped Miami in the rankings. What are we doing? You know what I mean?
Okay. Keep going, Cam. I'm going to have some pushback here.
No. Hey, but again, there has to be credit for winning the games on the field. And if you wanted to say, okay, when they beat Georgia, make that move, fine. They beat Mercer, and that was the logical foundation with which was used to move them ahead. I'm sorry. The answer is no. But my point there is you are seeing multiple teams, well, in Miami's case right now, only one team with 2 losses being ranked ahead of them. It's already known that the College Football Playoff Committee is going to push Big Ten and SEC teams to the forefront at the direct expense of teams from other places. So, yeah, it really needed to be a 12-0, 11-1 regular season for Miami to make the playoffs. And, you drop that game against Georgia Tech, and now you're in a single elimination format for me to get to the playoff. Miami loses another game here on out in the regular season and ACC championship game. You lose one of these 3, you're not making it. That's what they're showing, right? So that's why I'm saying the playoffs start now. It's not in Charlotte only. It's not that it was starting, and like you had the 1 game wiggle room, and then you lost that wiggle room when you lost to Georgia Tech. So for me, yeah, no, very firmly, the playoffs are underway for Miami. And again, logically, it's an easy to understand path. Beat Wake Forest on Senior Day this week. Senior Day, which again, y'all should be there for to support this team and those players who have been here through coaching changes to build the foundation for this team, including all-time leading receiver Xavier Restrepo, Andres Borregales, the ending player of the Borregales kicking dynasty, and many others who have been here this whole entire time who bleed orange and green. You beat Wake Forest then. You go on the road 2 days after Thanksgiving, and you beat Syracuse. Then the week after that, you go to Charlotte. You beat whoever you play there. Well, you win those 2 games. You make it to the ACC championship game. You get there. You beat who's ever there, and you make the playoff. You drop any of those games, and you don't make it. That is the importance of every game, of every snap, of every single play from here on out the rest of this regular season.
Okay. Let's start my side of this conversation with a Pollyanna notion that the committee knows nothing about TV contracts. They know nothing about who makes money.
But like, come on.
I just want to establish a position first.
All right.
Okay, let's just start there. Let's say the committee is completely innocent. They are just doing their job. Again, they know nothing about who's making money. They know nothing about, TV viewership is going to be higher for certain schools than other schools, brand names, anything like that. Nothing. And they know nothing about what happened in 2023 or going backwards about who the best conferences were or anything like that. They are simply trying to evaluate these teams on the play on the field. Do you think that you can look at these standings and generally justify that there are 2 lost teams that have proven more or have better resumes than 1 lost teams, or 1 lost teams better than 0 lost teams? You do think that that's a possibility, or that that's a thing?
I mean, in a vacuum, yes, but like this is like really, I've been in a world of I'm a nerd, deal with it. Like Dungeons and Dragons, and so I've been watching. There's a bunch of content creator houses, and they do those online. I've been watching a couple of them, and really, because I love that world building, and I love fiction, and I love all that kind of stuff. We are in one of those Narnia or Westworld or Game of Thrones, Westeros kind of worlds where I'm suspending disbelief and saying that the committee doesn't take things into the athletic director from the University of freaking Michigan is on it, and you think Ward Manuel wasn't instrumental in pushing the Big Ten to get that deal, and then I get that it is for argument's sake, but like we don't live in that world. Like you had to suspend. You're asking me, Cam Underwood, to suspend so much disbelief to get to that point. Now I know that this is done for these rankings, and this stuff is done for this very reason, for you and I to get on here and wax poetic and talk about it and take these stances. But games on the field matter. And Alabama's lost 2 of them.
Okay. So you are telling me that we should line up all the 0-loss teams, all the 1-loss teams, and all the 2-loss teams in some kind of order. That there's no 2-loss team that we could ever rank above a 1-loss team or a 1-loss team above a 0-loss team. That BYU going into last weekend should have been at worst the 3rd-ranked team in the country.
At some point there,
and that's fine. I'm just trying to establish
that does need to be a top tier point of conversation, because
sure,
you play to
I
win
agree with
the
that.
games. So
Absolutely.
I believe, in this whole thing, I believe on-field performance and win-loss records is being dropped down the list of importance to a place that I'm not comfortable with.
Really?
It needs to be high. Absolutely.
Is it that egregious?
I do. I think that it is. I really honestly do, because
there's only one team with a worse record ranked above Miami. Only one.
But see, I'm not
there's a list of 2-loss teams in front of them.
Right, but I'm not even looking at it in a Miami-centric view. I'm looking at it globally, because you did ask me, should that have been that same view? Would you afford that to Boise State or to? Yes. Absolutely. Now, I'm not saying that it is in its entirety, but I believe this become a footnote, and when it should be, central to the argument. You still have to go out and win the games. And we see every week that there's a good team, or a good team who gets challenged, who finds a way to win late. And it's been funny hearing and seeing the narrative of finding a way to win go from being a positive to being a negative, because Miami found a way to do it multiple times. Is this a defensive juggernaut team? No, absolutely not. I'm not going to sit here and try to say that. But nationally, the conversation has completely flipped on its head. In September, it was my cousin's birthday, August 31st, but the shows didn't come back until that Tuesday, really, right? Of Labor Day weekend. So from September the 2nd or 3rd, I believe it was, from the 3rd all the way to the beginning of October, it was, this is great. Miami's fine, blowing teams out and finding ways to win. And oh my God, the Virginia Tech game, and they were kind of messing around with it, and that incredible comeback at Cal is record-setting, and they showed such stick-to-itiveness and da-da-da-da. And the same people who were saying that shit then are now, nope, Miami's terrible. They shouldn't be there. Da-da-da-da. If you look at Joel Klatt, if you look at Josh Pate, if you look at the J.D. Pickell, if you look at and others, I named 3 national people. I've seen it on The Athletic. I've seen it on CBS Sports. I've seen it on 247. I've seen it on On3. I've seen it locally. I've seen it nationally. All of that is flipped up because Miami was finding ways to win. And it's only flipped up to say, well, if they were playing a better team, or what we deem to be a stronger team, maybe they wouldn't have found a way to win. You didn't say that about, you had a bad day when Alabama went to Vanderbilt. You wouldn't say any of that, because they could have gotten a couple stops. They could have not had so many penalties. Malachi Moore could have not kirked out and slammed his, thrown his mouthpiece to the sideline and kicked the damn ball on when they're there on a victory formation. But it's been completely inverted at the expense of singularly Miami. And then it's like, okay, well, we're just going to go put that away. So now we put it up as a good thing. We've then made it into a bad thing, finding ways to win games close. That has always been, well, that's just the Alabama way. They find ways to win. That's just what good teams do. And then you're dropping that down and saying, well, yeah, they won some games, so we're going to put that over there. And we would kind of like it to look differently. I don't give a fuck how it looks, but it's all narratives. And I'm clearly passionate about it. But but even at the end of the day, with all of that being said, and I believe to be the case, win on Saturday, win next Saturday, win the Saturday after that, and you make it to the playoffs.
You do believe, because we have done a few shows together, so I'm guessing, having put a few under our belts, that I think you're nuanced to be able to see both sides of this argument, the one that you just brought up regarding evaluating a team that finds a way to win.
Mm-hmm.
That there is, let's say we're going to take the extreme case and say Miami or whomever is winning every game in the final 10 seconds of the game every week. It's just uncanny how they're pulling out these games every week. Obviously, that's not Miami. They've dominated. They won by 30 points against Duke. They blew out Florida, et cetera, et cetera. So that's not Miami. But let's say there would be an argument to say, wow, we're 10 games deep into the season. There must be something about this team where they truly do find a way to win, and that should be valued and as a great commodity to have. But there would also be an argument to say, well, here's this other 10-0 team, and they're playing a like schedule, and they're beating these teams by 3 and 4 touchdowns.
Right, and
you have to evaluate the performance on the field and the level of dominance too. So there is value to both of those evaluations.
Right, but in the case of Miami, because it's been turning for 6 weeks now, damn near every national outlet was waiting with just a bulldozer. I used to say this phrase when I was a teacher. I said, do not ruin my sandcastle, this beautiful audio art that we have built expressing the story of our song with this performance. And you on page 12, measure 83, sing a loud and wrong note, and you have ruined my sandcastle. They were waiting with bulldozers to ruin Miami's sandcastle at the first sign of anything. There was not the same talk. Okay, I will take State, Oregon out of it because that's 1 point on the road against the number 1 team. Fine. Every other loss that's on this list, Texas losing, oh, well, they played a bad game, but they kind of glad-handed that and said, well, that's okay. They won some very close games. Penn State, we've talked about it on here for years. They beat everybody but Michigan and O State. They're up 10-0 in that game at home. Big noon Saturday. Now, and it's a crime against humanity that was not a Saturday night whiteout game. That is just robbery of the experience of those fans because, oh my God, that should have been a night game. But it wasn't. But they fumbled the bag real bad and had a fumble for a touchback from O State going in for another touchdown and all that. Well, fine. Okay, that's the number 2 team. But if you go down this list of all these games, brother, Notre Dame lost at home to directional Illinois. And that's just been, what? Really? Huh? This season, Cam? You wouldn't know it because the singular focus of you lost the game and therefore your entire college football playoff pursuit is made null, void, and invalid only came to the forefront because of Miami, which is the frustrating thing. But again, win these next 3 weeks and we'll be in. With a bye, by the way. If we don't win any of these games, though, I do not believe there's I find it to be infinitesimally small chance that if Miami were to, the only way it would happen would be losing in the ACC championship game, presumably to SMU. Because you don't make the ACC championship game more likely than not if you lose in the regular season. And if you lose one of these games in the regular season, then maybe that does prove that you're not a playoff team. But there's probably an infinitesimally small chance that Miami loses the ACC championship game and still makes the field of 12. Like, very, very small chance. And if that were to happen, that would only be on the strength of brand. As in, oh, people know the Miami name. They'll watch a TV show with Miami, which again, that's what football games are, TV shows. But it's probably, I would say, fractional of a singular percent if Miami were to lose one of these next 3 games. So that's what it is. Go win, make the playoff. Go don't, and don't.
So I think you know me well enough to know I'm in part arguing this point because you're arguing the other point. I'm just trying to bring some balance to the conversation, number one.
Fair.
Number 2, because we go live while these are being released, and I was fighting a bunch of folks that were saying, Miami gets by, they're overrated, calling me. And I was pointing out to those people, Look at the Miami win against Florida. Compare that Miami win against Florida to Tennessee's win in overtime against Florida. Compare that to Georgia's win against Florida against a third-string quarterback at Florida, and that game was tied in the fourth quarter. Compare those data points that are exactly comparable. So I'm I can argue the Miami side as well. So I'm just clarifying that I'm just trying to uncover some things here.
No, fair. No, absolutely fair. And yeah, definitely, well, man, I mean, and like, yeah, there does need to be, kind of a debate. We can't always be in lockstep. I get it.
And the point I would make about the Alabama point in them eclipsing Miami after a win against Mercer, which should be completely inconsequential to any evaluation. Every team on that top 10 should beat Mercer by 45 points. It should just be completely inconsequential. If the committee's doing its job and if it's doing what it has been tasked to do, it's to reconstruct the entire season every week. Therefore, what I'm guessing here, off just the top of my head, is that Georgia playing a pretty dominant game against Tennessee, a team that obviously Alabama beat Georgia. Also, Louisville possibly being at one point Miami's best win, being downgraded because of the Stanford loss, that they're supposed to be looking at past results too and the changing values of those teams and those games.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be part of the process.
I agree. I mean, I'm of two minds with that because, that's why I love, writing the good, the bad, and the ugly and like just reacting live and saying, like all week long, this has been the talking point. This has been the comparison. This has been what we have, made the stakes to be of this game and of these teams, and then giving credit in that moment, and it's funny, like I heard Josh Pate come on and say, well, you didn't play DJ Lagway in the opener. First of all, I was the one on this show saying that he should have started over Graham Mertz to start with. For one, go check out all the recordings. And two, that was Florida at full strength with Javon Curse being there, Mr. Two Bits or whatever, at home in the swamp for the opener. We're back. We're bigger, better, faster, stronger, better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's, right? So Miami's going to come in here and we're going to blow them out and da-da-da-da-da-da, right? And remember, I would always redirect you, and because we talked about their schedule and everyone was saying, I said, no, their schedule doesn't get hard later. It starts with us. That's what I said on here. And we went there and blew them out and left 20-something points on the board and blew them out by 3 scores, right? 4 scores. Now he's like, well, y'all didn't play DJ Lagway in November, is not the same player that he was in August. So it's a logical fallacy to say, well, you didn't play this player from then. Yeah, because we don't have fucking time machines. You know what I mean? It's just like that's the kind of stuff that's really infuriating about just going back, and it's complete revisionist history. It's like, oh, well, what we saw in that game on Saturday, that or more, because he wouldn't have been injured then, is exactly the performance he got on the field. We saw what the fuck happened. I'm going to stop cursing. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm getting very angry. But we saw what happened with him in that opener. Now, did he lead a touchdown drive? A singular touchdown drive? Yes, he did. Credit to him. And I gave credit to him and said, wow. You saw him flash those kind of things. Did he throw a bad interception? Did he take a couple sacks? Did he miss open receivers? Was the run game stifled? All of that also, yes. But that was apparently wiped away from people's memories like they were in Men in Black or something. It's just the goalposts keep moving in terms of the exterior view of Miami from on the national stage, which is super frustrating. But again, win your games, and you're in. If you lose any of these next 3, and I'm going to keep calling it 3 games because I'm speaking things into existence before they happen. We're winning, and we're going to Charlotte and winning. But if you lose any of those games, you don't make the playoffs. And then there's a debate on whether on the the post-mortem on this season, I think, has a different tenor. Making the playoffs and not making the playoffs, especially with the journey that we've been on to this point.
And again, I was starting the conversation, discussion, debate with the assumption that let's evaluate this, assuming that the playoff committee is doing its job in all honesty, knowing that there are factors, money and other things that are involved, but let's at least start there and see if we can, let's respect them to respect ourselves, to say we're going to evaluate their rankings blindly as well, to give them the benefit of the doubt, and then we can start to pick apart where there are issues.
To me, like, I mean, I get what you're saying. They don't have any benefit of doubt in my mind. But again, they don't need benefit of doubt so long as Miami continues to perform and gets the results that they desire.
Well, what else is interesting about this going to a 12-team field is that the committee exposes itself for what its true goals are. You know, when you have 4 teams, 3 of them are pretty much like rock solid. Like, you know, when we went through the 10 years of the 4-team era, like anyone could have selected at least 3. And some years it was just like, those have to be the 4. So they really couldn't work around it. Now that we've expanded to 12, there's a lot of play to determine other spots and bring the politics into it.
And also, like, you know, I think that there's a really strong debate. Otherwise, Falcon or TRX, thanks for the first super sticker, of course. Always, let me throw it up. I'm not sure that Miami should be ranked over SMU presently. And I mean, like, it's a thing that, like, I've kind of quietly slid by. You know, well, when we were undefeated, yeah, but like after having lost, compare those losses. I don't know. I think that is a good conversation. Not that I necessarily need or want to have that now, but just a thing I was thinking.
And we both know that whether we agree with it or not, this is another way the committee's supposed to operate. There's supposed to be the metrics analytics side of it, and then there's supposed to be just the flat out football evaluation, football experts evaluating teams on the screen. So let's take that side out of it for a second, because somebody could just flat out say, I watched Miami play 8 games this year. I watched SMU play. Miami's just better. Rank them 5 spots higher. They're just better. But yeah, looking at the results against the schedule, it is, I can't say definitively, but, and we're not going to carve through it right now, but maybe that's for another week.